Welcome to the Soul Revival Podcast, where we have deep and meaningful conversations exploring modalities, tools, and healing, guiding you back to your most expansive soul self.
Hello, lovely souls, and welcome back to the Soul Revival Podcast. Today's episode, we're diving into a conversation that so many of us need, yet so few of us feel fully supported in: grief. I am deeply honored to welcome the voices behind the All Grief podcast, a space devoted to honesty, compassion, and real conversations around loss, healing, and what it means to carry grief while still choosing to live. So let's take a breath and settle in as we welcome Andrea and Rebecca to the Soul Revival podcast. We would love if you guys could take a few minutes and introduce yourselves to our audience.
Sure. Mm-hmm. All right. Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for having us on. We're so excited. We had the privilege of interviewing Lindsay just a few months ago, and so it's lovely to continue this connection. My name is Andrea, and I'm one of the hosts. And my background is actually as a statistician and researcher. So I have a PhD in research and evaluation and worked in museums for a long time, investigating sort of sense of belonging in these scientific spaces. And I remember even then kind of feeling like, where's the place for spirit within this workplace? How can we be so, segmented from anything in that world, sort of religious or spiritual, as scientists, when I'm like, don't we believe anything is possible as scientists? Like, until we have proof there isn't this sort of spiritual realm, how can we be so certain that it wasn't? So it was this interesting place where I felt like I really belonged academically and professionally, but personally, I felt like there was a part of me that I couldn't bring in. And I worked at the museum for 10 years, and then my father really suddenly passed away in May of 2020. He had been in the hospital, but nothing life-threatening, and he was supposed to come home the next day. And I got a call that night that he had suddenly died in the hospital. And it just turned everything upside down. Suddenly, I couldn't not be my full self at work. I took time off. I had an extremely loving and generous boss who gave me whatever I needed. But eventually I had to come back to work, and I would have to just turn off my screen because I would just fall into a fit of tears. I just couldn't hold my grief back. You could hear it in my voice. I think a lot of grievers feel this, didn't care. I was like, why are we talking about what color to paint the walls? And none of it matters. And so it was a real transition for me. And in that transition and sort of finding a new place of belonging, I found a deeper connection with Rebecca. We were already friends, and was like, we should make a podcast about grief. And so we did, wildly not knowing what it meant to make a podcast.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for that share.
Yeah.
And hi, I'm Rebecca, and I am a psychotherapist. And it actually, for me, was a series of grief events that kind of put me on the path to being a psychotherapist. I mean, I had initially studied psychology, was my undergrad degree, and then I went into design and went into an art field and loved it and worked as a graphic designer for 12 years. And then, like, within the span of a year and a half, had 3 really intense grief events. My dad died, and he was only 53 of a heart attack. And then my sister's first child was stillborn. And then I got a cancer diagnosis on the other side of that, or actually reverse those two. It's all the way trauma is disorganizing. Sometimes when I talk about it, I'm like, wait, what happened in what order? It all happened all at once, right? But I knew at the end of those experiences, I had this clarity of wanting to pursue psychotherapy again, and feeling like, oh, I understand how to sit with pain, and I really have something to offer that I probably knew intuitively I was lacking. But I didn't immediately go into grief work. And it was through a few years of working with clients in sort of different capacities and with different populations that I was like, grief keeps showing up. Like, my clients will be meeting for one thing, and then my client will be like, my friend just suicided yesterday, and now we're just talking about the grief of that. Or I'm working with a little kid, and his grandfather dies, who was like his best friend, but that's while we're working together. And there was something that was almost in that same way, like feeling really guided and led towards um, your work is actually grief and feeling that sort of call from spirit. And then like starting to dive into that myself, dive into whatever unprocessed grief I had. I found my way to like Francis Weller's work and just really starting to feel the strong, like, oh, this is soul activism and this is what I'm here to do. And then, yeah, Andrea lost her father and was like, I need to be talking with people who understand grief because there's so many people who just sort of lean away when we try to talk about our grief. And she proposed over dinner that we start grief podcast. And I was like, I'm such a yes to this. And it's just been the sweetest thing that we do together. So
Yeah.
it's our background.
We do like to start every podcast episode with the same question. So if you guys don't mind answering this, what aligns you most to your soul selves?
Mm-hmm.
Such a good question.
Gosh, it's sort of hard to pinpoint. I think I have a few practices, but I would say the one that's most consistent and it's sort of adjacent to even trainings that I've done that have really impacted the way I practice as a psychotherapist. But I was like, I feel like there's something really powerful about being able to zoom out and I can kind of, so it's like in a moment when I'm, if I'm in anxiety or I'm, um, feeling sad or there's something, it's like I'm always a fan of let yourself feel what you feel. But it's like having this dual perception where I'm able to also literally view where I am as if I'm like in the clouds looking down. I'm like, oh, there's Rebecca driving her car feeling so anxious. And she's like on earth. And then it's like I can immediately feel that sense of like, this is my soul's journey here. And and I'm okay. And there's nothing wrong with anxiety or sadness or whatever I'm feeling. This is part of my work. And so it's sort of my most immediate get connected to something higher and bigger.
I love that because I feel like so often when we are in the moment of feeling completely overwhelmed, out of control, and just like the world is falling down on us, so frequently when we look back, like we don't even remember those moments. We don't even remember what got us there. And so zooming out like is a reminder that even though it feels huge in the moment, it's not going to even be a thing in a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a beautiful question. And what I immediately thought of was I had this healing journey. So after my dad died, I left the museum within about 9 months of his death. Again, it was just like, I just had this sense of like, I'm not living my purpose. And this realization, which I think I had known for a long time, I sort of like identified as a perfectionist, and not with pride, like I have this troubling quirk about me. I was a high achiever. Admittedly, I still am. I should not say was. Rebecca's like, the fuck you talking about? I am a high achiever. And really performance oriented. Like I wanted to be what other people wanted me to be. And so I had this healing journey that was a dismemberment, which I'm sure you two know loads about. And my helping spirit sort of, in the way that they can be really graphic, but it's not actually physically painful, sort of opened me up. And I saw the parts of myself sort of coming out, and there left the achiever, the performer, these parts of me that longed to have external validation of worth of who I was. And I realized how much I had been driven by that, even in wanting to be that person for my dad, who I probably identified as the person who would love me no matter what. Now, that does not mean he wouldn't complain, because he was also like the most practical, safe, cautious human. So he'd be like, well, I really want you to do what makes you happy. Please don't leave a job with insurance. Like that would, like, he'd be like, can we just do that and be insured? I just realized like I needed to start shedding those layers, and I needed to understand who they were and how much they had driven who I was, even in the healthiest relationships that I had. And so it was this really like revelation of a journey. And of course, on the other side of it, you meet your true self and you understand your highest self and what your purpose is. And part of my purpose is, I don't know, but that part of my highest self was like, I give zero fucks. And not that I don't care. I mean, I care tremendously, but that the part of me that wanted to perform and achieve for other people needed to not fucking care anymore.
Yeah.
I had to just be like, Andrea, yes, your really good friend that you've known for a decade that studies astrophysics through algorithmic logic is going to think you're insane. And you need to be okay with that because you're so solid in your truth. And I think that now I sometimes have to, not sometimes, I quite often journey back to her to remember when I feel my performer taking over in an unhealthy way, when I feel my achiever taking over in an unhealthy way. I have to journey back to her to be reminded, like, Andrea, none of those external things matter. You have to do this because it's what's right inside of you. And it's like almost a daily practice, to be clear.
I love that because I think like it's a reminder, and I feel like actually COVID did this for all of us as well, but it's a reminder to step into your authentic self no matter what container you're in. And what I find is we often tend to let our fear-based mindset take over, like the fear of not being worthy, not being enough, or not being what you think they want you to be. And in reality, when we shed that skin and step into our authenticity is when we actually start to make bonds and create connections in the most amazing way. And I have gone through this experience myself, and I very much resonate with your overachiever and perfectionist, which probably goes back to our pre-record conversation around working out. But that aside, we'll keep moving forward. I would say that I have sat in a lot of containers with very senior female leaders, executives, CEOs of companies. And what I find is because I was at the same place you were when my husband passed, that, I didn't give an F. Like it is like gonna be what you get is what you get. And I don't care if I'm seeing you in the context of corporate America or if you've come to me because you need coaching and are dealing with grief, you're gonna get the same version of me. And what I found was it actually built these phenomenal connection points with people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise expected. And so I ended up with CEOs as my coaching clients, and we ended up in these like deep connective conversations that if I hadn't given myself permission to be that authentic, fully expressed version of myself, no matter where I am, that would have never happened. I wouldn't have, most importantly, as a sole purpose, I wouldn't have given them permission to have those conversations because they didn't have any other safe spaces to have those conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you turn on your grief light and everybody comes running. I mean, I think that was what drove me to proposing to Rebecca. I want to say she didn't say yes right away. Okay, everybody. She made me wait.
Like 8 hours?
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
It felt like eternity.
It did.
Considering Andrea wanted to start a month before she you.
Yes, you know me, Lindsay. Yes, considering I already had everything in place. That is like my husband's biggest complaint about me. He's like, when you come to me, you're on step 10. And I'm like, because I want to make sure that my plan is viable. Like, why would I bring you a plan that's not going to work? But so yes, Lindsay, I feel so seen. But I would, because my grief was so out there all the time for people to see, like wore my broken heart on my sleeve, people talk to me, and it would be, my mom died 20 years ago, and I've never had someone to talk about this grief with. And I'm like, sit down. We don't have anything else to do today. So yeah, I hear you. And I think that was where Rebecca and I just were like, we need to do this. And then, that first year, we were asking everybody we knew. We were like, you want to be on a podcast? You want to come talk? You got grief. You want to come talk about your grief? And all of a sudden, we started getting, PR people coming out with books, people who had other podcasts, people who created plays reaching out to us, where now I'm like, we still have friends we want to talk to, and we have to squeeze them in. And so I know it's we just know it's an under-discussed, undervalued, underseen aspect of our humanity.
Which is wild, because it's also 100% an experience that we all will experience. It's a commonality of our humanity too. So it's wild.
Yeah. I think that is such a great point to ask a question that I have on my list of questions to cover with you all. Talk to us about your upcoming grief retreats. I'm like so intrigued. Just providing space for people is so important. And as we talked about, just culturally, we just don't do a good job. So tell us about what it is, these sacred offerings that you have, and these retreats. I'm very curious.
Rebecca, you go first.
I know you're going to make me take it. Yeah, we started them last year, and it was really kind of something where we were like, I would love to have this. So let's create this thing that we would love to have. And then almost like that, if you build it, they will come. And we were like, will they come? But they fill up, and it's just so beautiful. So we do these 1-day retreats in Denver, in Andrea's home, that it's just a space from the morning into late afternoon, that we're gathering with people, we're co-creating an altar, we're inviting in stories, it's our podcast is All the Grief, and we are like, all the grief is welcome, because really sort of the thread that is the consistent thread in all of our retreats is, to get out of that space of comparative grief of like, oh, but yours is worse than mine. What am I even doing here? I'm grieving a divorce, and your child died. And it's while those experiences, we can inherently know some are more rip your world apart than others. If we are not tending to the grief that we have, how are our hearts able to hold other people's grief? And so we create this space to be witnessed and held, to share your story, to hear other people's stories, hold space for them. And we also bring in a lot of elements that are resourcing in your grief, because we're not trying to fix anything, and we're not you'll heal. We get really careful around language around healing, because I think so often people think, oh, then I'll get all my tears out and I'll be done. And it's that's not how grief works, but it's forging your new relationship with the person you've lost, or with your new identity, in the face of a diagnosis, or, a divorce, or whatever pieces we're sort of holding, or grief that you had 20 years ago that was unsafe to process. And now that you're processing it, it's oh, I've been holding it together, and I might be a little messy for a while. And how do I work with that? And so we have different things. We do movement, we do creative things, and we have nourishing, delicious food. The chai is always a hit. And then we do 3-day retreats up in Andrea's got a cabin in the mountains, and we're so fortunate to have that space, and it sleeps 6. And we create a 3-day version of that people really get to drop in. We do nature sits on the land, have nature be one of the resources. And they're just, at the end of them, it's sort of people will say oh, you guys don't charge enough. And I'm like, what we receive in soul credit feels so huge. It's every time I'm just this is, I always kind of have a little altar that's like drawing people in that this is right for. And it's like every time I'm like, this is the exact right group. And it's just like the sweetest communities get created in that. And then we stay, of course, connected with these communities that we create over time so that they're not like, oh God, I'm leaving and I'm never going to talk to you again. So yeah. And if you would add anything, Andrea, because I have my way of telling the
Oh,
story.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, and the places where we have them. So the one days right now have been at my house, which, I have such a loving relationship with my house, and a very spiritual relationship with my house. And
we want to express deep gratitude for everybody who sponsors the podcast. It really, really matters. It allows us to invest our time, effort, and energy in bringing you the most relevant spiritual content. So if you're feeling called, please subscribe, click like, leave a review, or sponsor the podcast. We very, very much appreciate you.
so you can feel my house sort of come alive when we hold it here. She's 100 years old. And when people gather here, it's just like you're held, both sort of physically and emotionally. And then up at the cabin, it's where I found out my father had died. And so because it was COVID, we had gone up to the mountains because our little boys were only 2.5. And, it was like that time when you had no idea if you're going to catch it from somebody walking by. I would run with a mask on. And so we had gone up to the cabin because our place is really, really remote. And the boys could just walk the land for hours at a time. And so when I found out my dad died, I remember my therapist telling me, like, Andrea, go out to the land and just scream. It can hold you. And so it's like land that has already tended and held grief. And you feel that when you go up there, you feel that reciprocity of us coming to the land and offering our tears, as Rebecca talks about oftentimes, offering our tears to the land, and the land just so steadily holding us and reminding us of renewal and rebirth and sort of that cycle. So the locations that we have them are really meaningful and purposeful too, and just feel like really special to both Rebecca and I.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The next question I'm going to ask, I absolutely love, Andrea, the products that you've come out with for dreamwork, and I want to dive into that because I will share that in my book, and a huge part of my journey and connection with Roger and my best friend who passed was around scent and essences, and knowing that that was a connective tissue to be able to call them in for dream visits. So I am so happy that you launched this, and it resonates with me so deeply because I knew it was a portal opening for me. And so I would love to hear about everything you have put into this, how it works, and yeah, just tell everybody, because this is such a topic that I feel like is not talked about really at all, and it's to me it was transformative.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps, Lindsay. I mean, we can start with the smell, right? There's like scientific evidence about our sense of smell being linked to our memories and recall. And so I remember being in the 6th grade, and I had a history teacher, and he would do these experiments, but like he would spray this like almost lemon pledge kind of smell as we were studying certain parts, and then he would spray it during the test, and so we could see how our scent would call back these certain memories. And so those pieces, he would be like, don't study these at home. Like, we're going to do this experiment. And so I always remembered that and would hear it sort of in scientific papers later on. And the dream world is this space where I feel like is an introductory space to the unseen world. Many of us, even if we don't identify as dreamers, we've had dreams that we remember. And so to me, it was like this beautiful introduction. I shut down my dream space for a long time because I was like, I don't want to work at night. I don't want to work. Like, helping spirits come to me in the day. I journey as a practice, come to me then. And about a year ago now, they just broke through. They were like, no, we're going to come and we have something to deliver you. And so it was a goddess that I had been working with a decade ago when my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, Ishel, and she had helped me get pregnant. And I built her an altar and she just worked with me. And then it was like, once my twins were like had viability, maybe a little bit beyond that, she just disappeared from my sort of like my spiritual realm. And I had never seen her again. And I still would keep her on my altar. And it was like cold. It was like just putting a random rock on my altar. You could really energetically feel it. And then a year ago, she came back in my dreams and I was like, oh, there you are. And she took me through the forest and she was picking herbs and flowers and putting them in this sort of like, there was like a basket woven into her dress, as dreams do. They just create whatever they need to make things useful. And then she turned to me and she said, you are going to help people with herbs and flowers to get through the portal. And I woke up and it was like I was on fire. I mean, it was like I just sat down and was like, I could not type fast enough. I would have trouble falling asleep because I was like, I still have things I need to get out. And I would have to tell myself, Andrea, it will be there in the morning, go to bed. And so I created these and each blend, and I knew which blends I was going to make, offer you with the combination of herbs and flowers and different essences, these triggers that both sort of help your olfactory, so your smelling senses, open up to a certain type of otherworld experience. And so I have like 10 blends, one including deep sleep, because sometimes it's like, I don't even sleep well. And I'm like, well, that's going to be essential to dream work. So let's practice that first. But then I created like a little ritual because I feel like the other thing that becomes really intimidating about some of this is feeling like you don't know how to do it or you're going to do it wrong. And so for beginners, I have these little ritual kits that have an incantation, have ritual instructions. I give you a little bell for clearing your space, a rock or a crystal that's also associated with the type of work that you're about to do. So whether it's connecting with your ancestors, tapping into creative muses, expansion, astral projection. And then there's a spray because, again, it's scented with what you had so that the magic and the medicine that you received during your dream or during your journey, you can spray and remember it in your wake time. And so these all just came about. And dreams to me are the sort of easiest way in. They're the way, like you have something, you long for someone to explain what they mean to you. And so it's really just an invitation to kind of direct your dreams, just to ask from your subconscious, to ask from your helping spirits. This is a space where I want to do work. And here's what I'd like to do. So you can I want to seek expansion. I want to understand the universe from a different perspective. And so you can do the expansion ritual and use that oil blend. But you can also use them anytime. For me, for example, astral projection, I don't use in my dreams because I can feel it. The moment I smell that, one broke open. I was taking it to a friend and it broke open in my bag. And I just didn't think about it. I got home late. I left my bag by my bed and I could smell it. And I could feel my spirit coming out and turning side. And I was like, oh, girl, we don't do that. No, come back.
Come back in.
We are staying here. We are staying together. I don't know where you want to go, but we're not doing that tonight. So that one I actually only use when I'm doing journey work, trance work, meditative work, because I just feel that much more in control because it does give me a feeling of is she going to come back? I don't know. So you can use them in journey work or trance or meditation work. I have a friend who used the ancestral one or the prophetic one when they're reading tarot cards, which isn't their divination tool, but when they use it, they're like, all of a sudden, I know what I'm doing. So you can use it during other types of connection, but I feel like dream work is sort of the easiest way in because we all sleep, and whether we know it or not, we all dream.
And we're all having a spiritual connection in our dreams, whether we realize it or not.
Completely.
This is something I work on with clients a lot. Like they might think they're not having dream visits, but then when we do the work, they actually figure out they are having the dream visits.
Yep.
This is like I said, this is just something that's so dear to my heart because I intuitively knew to use this spray that was like a fairy forest essence. My husband and I were very, very connected to nature. We loved going out on like long, crazy hikes that nobody else would go on. And so for me, I knew it was like some type of like knocking on the energetic door, and that it would just, not that you had to have it to open the door, but that it was a clearing of the pathway and just made it that much easier for me to call in a dream visit. So I just want to reiterate to everybody listening, this 1000% works. And
Yeah.
I love that you've built this offering.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will grab your addresses and send you each a box because it's a fun tool to explore. Even if you're already a really good dreamer, we have easy ones because things like there's an emotional healing, and that can happen whether you don't need to do anything. Just put it on and go to bed, up to like astral projection or moving across timelines and things like that. Yeah. So
I got really emotional when you were talking about the goddess, how she came in at a certain point of your life and then she was gone and then she came back, because I feel like a lot of my clients or people that I work with tend to think they're doing something wrong because this person has left. But really it's you're safe now. You're good to live your life, and when you're needed, when the goddess is needed, it will come back. It will come back. And love is always there. And I really got emotional when you were saying that she came back in your dream to show you that. And it's beautiful.
I love that, Autumn.
Very sacred.
I had the same experience with pets. So I had a Rottweiler that I got when I lived in Honduras, and she was my protector, like almost to a point where like I would have to leave jerky in the mailbox if friends came over so they could bribe her to be able to come in my house, basically. And when she died, she would visit me. I mean, like constantly in my dreams, just checking on me. And then I got another dog and she stopped visiting me as often. And I remember the heartbreak because I was like, I still want to see you. I don't want you to think. I felt like, oh no, does Arizona think I abandoned her for Annabelle? Like, oh no. And it was just like, no, until she knew I had my new companion in this world, she was good. And my little boys see her now with my dad. So I feel secure in that. But there is a moment where you feel like, did I do something wrong? Have I upset you? And it's just like our guides and helpers pop in when they need us. Although we do have some, you both know that we have some that are with us from before we remember, who will be with us in whatever our next iteration is.
Sometimes though too, I think it's important to note, because I had this experience, there's shifts in the way that they send us signs and visits. So it might not be that they disappeared. They might just be attaching to us in a different way.
Yeah. I feel like Rebecca gets those like signs.
Yeah, synchronicities a lot and signs for sure. Including, it's funny, Lindsay, so I'm my good friend Megan Foley, who lost their partner, Andrea, and my also good friend who I lost in July. And Megan is traveling a lot right now. Their documentary, Come See Me in the Good Light, is like winning all these awards and
Oh,
some like
amazing.
traveling. And I
So
ran
good.
into her. It was kind of crazy because I've been dog sitting and I was like, well, I know I'm dog sitting today, but no one texted me. And usually someone will text me and be like, the gate's open and whatever. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go anyway. I'm not even going to text to be sure. And I get there and I was like, oh, there's a person walking around inside, but I don't see any cars. I'm like, why am I seeing a physical ghost? I never see a physical ghost, but actually it was Meg. It was not a physical ghost. And she was like, oh, I didn't expect to be here, but I was like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't check in because I wouldn't have run into you. So we kind of got to connect for a minute. And I was like, well, where are you going next? Because she's left this morning on a trip and she's like, oh, I'm going to Brandy Carlisle's mothership, blah, blah, blah. I know.
Where are
And
you
then I
two,
was like,
Matt?
but I know. And so then I was like, oh, okay. And oh yeah, I've heard of that before, but sort of like forgot. And then when I was like popping in to listen to one of your podcasts this morning, it was literally the one where you're talking about meeting at the Brandy Carlisle. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, right. I was like, "Ah, there's this synchronicity." So I'm like, I have to tell Meg. Like, and I'm not saying that Andrea is going to bring you your next partner 6 months after they are gone, but like that there's just a magic in the Brandy Carlisle thing. And like Meg is loving all the synchronicities right now.
There is
And
such a magic, and like I feel
yeah.
like her community is such a sacred space. They've invited me for the next mothership to do some healings for the collective. So
Oh,
for people experiencing grief, and then obviously our collective grief that of so many things we're going through right now. So because it's Mother's Day weekend, always Mother's Day weekend, they're going to have that tie-in because whether you're grieving the physical loss of your mother or maybe like a mother figure you didn't quite ever have, like there's so much nuance to it. But yeah, I'm going to be hosting a couple healings during the next.
ah,
So yeah.
that's
That's
amazing.
beautiful.
That
That's
is.
exciting. Yeah. Love that.
I have one more question. So I would love for you guys, because we all know that there's critical inflection points, and we go through different phases with our grief. Sometimes we come back to different phases of our grief years after we think that we're through that phase of our grief. There's so much nuance to grief, but I would love if you have a or several modalities or tools that have helped you throughout your entire grief journey with consistency, if you don't mind sharing what that was for you.
Rebecca.
Who's
Mine
your
was
tool?
Rebecca.
Pass it. Oh, I'm the tool. I was like, you're
Yeah,
telling me
no,
to
I meant
speak.
no, no. I meant Rebecca was my tool. But why I say that is like I think grief can be really isolating purposefully. I don't think it actually is. We've all talked about like this is part of the human experience. It's the one thing, regardless of its grief over moving and leaving a community or friends or a house you love, losing a job, the end of a partnership or relationship, or the loss of a loved one or a pet. We all experience grief, or just being alive right now, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
fucking griefy.
Mhm.
We all experience grief. We're just told it's yours and you just keep it to yourself. And so, why I like offhandedly say Rebecca, but I mean it with my whole heart, is what I needed was to feel in community. I needed to feel not alone. I needed to feel normal. I needed to feel loved and appreciated. I needed to both be able to talk about it whenever I wanted and not have to talk about it when I didn't want to, you know? And Rebecca created that for me. I didn't have a lot of peers who had lost their parents. I was sort of, but the interesting thing was once I did, I all of a sudden got all these like letters, interestingly, like cards and whatever that were like, welcome to the club nobody wants to be a part of. And I'm like, why don't we talk about this? Like, if you're in the club and you knew I might join the club, why wouldn't you say something to me? You know? And so I think that's also like these communities that we build, these little, these retreats that are little only in that, they're very small. It's like 6 people and Rebecca and I. Um, we maintain these connections long after our in-person experience because that connection to a person who has been able to see and hold and witness your grief, but then laugh with you and like, do ribbon parades with you. I mean, we do all kinds of shit, at these things. It's just a connection that we all need as humans. And so for me, it really has been human connection.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, I believe it's human connection. And I think that what I felt at the time that I had these sort of back-to-back grief events was feeling more acutely people going away and sort of knowing myself as someone who went away before I had actually experienced grief and feeling a lot of sadness about that. Like, oh, wow, I was really also one of these people. So I can't even be mad at them that they're like afraid because we come by it honestly and we feel like maybe it's contagious whatever it is. So in those places of feeling isolated, I mean, I felt really clear in myself, well, I can sit with things that are hard. So how do I show up in that way in the world? But what I know is even in having all of these practices and all of these things, I'm like, oh, I've got Andrea, I've got like, I only have friends who will let me talk about grief. Like I have this community that I've sort of self-created. I also feel really aware that every grief is unique and that I will be walking a grief path again at some point. And that there's not a way to protect yourself from what that experience is. And what I know, and it's sort of like, I guess what I would consider, it's almost like my North Stars or my, gosh, there's another word I'm looking for. It's like I'm picturing myself holding a rock, but it's like something where it's just like the things that steady me or the things that I know is, grief is not a linear journey. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. That one of the hardest places that, and when people are in our groups or when I work with them one-on-one in therapy and they say, oh, like I just feel stuck in my grief because it's been 20 years or it's been 8 months or whatever it is that their story is about being stuck in their grief. I'm like, oh, you're not actually stuck. You haven't felt it fully yet. And so I see time and time again how when we just keep letting those emotions move through us, they have their own wisdom, they have their own brilliance, and we will continue to like make it to the shore of our vitality. I mean, I think grief and vitality are so linked. And if you're letting yourself feel the fullness of your sadness, you'll find more vitality, you'll find more joy, I mean, it's sort of like I hate ever promising that, but I'm like, sometimes the ego's like, well, what's in it for me? And you have to be like, okay, it's like you'll feel joy and you're going to need to trust me that you have to dive into like the really hard places to feel that joy. But I have to keep reminding myself of that. So it is sort of it's like, I don't know, it feels like a secret power sometimes where I'm like, I just let myself feel and I let it be however big it needs to be, and I trust it. And and that one of the Megan Devine says this in her book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay. She says something like this. I consistently misquote it and change it all the time, but it's something like, I don't care if it happened 80 years ago or 8 days ago, it just happened. And I think remembering that the body kind of does that, it doesn't know time in that same way. And so sometimes it's like, whoa, like I'm in intense grief about something that happened so many years ago. And if we just don't tell ourselves, oh, that's weird, and we say instead, like, okay, that's what's here now, and I'm going to let that be felt, that really keeps me hopeful that I will be able to navigate the next grief that is going to be excruciatingly painful. Like that like both can exist. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important. And I feel like the constant reminder too that getting past it, getting through it isn't even the end goal. It's really the reason we're feeling this is because we've deeply connected in love and like the largest capacity possible. And who would want to change that? Who would want to walk around numb? So the very fact that we get to feel this is really a privilege because it means that we know big, big love.
Yeah. And that feels like the zoomed out view, just sort of like, because, I'll be with my partner now and he is like, I'm like, oh, you're my human. No offense to everyone before, but like, you're my human. And I'm like, like I have to choose this knowing I'm also choosing a moment of grief at some point that we're not going to like get to stay on earth for exactly the same amount of time, most likely. And that one of us has to go first. And like, I'm like, do I still choose this I'm like, yeah, I choose the unsafety of that and the sort of, intensity of that and that it's part of it. But I also want to say I love moving. So that piece where like Andrea is saying the ribbon parade, but it's like we always have like this moment of just sort of letting your body do what it naturally wants to do. And I think movement is such a beautiful way to like let our emotions move through us
Oh,
literally.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
flow.
it was
Yeah.
definitely the thing I was first called to when I was going through it. Just like my body was like, you need to do this. And then I eventually learned all about somatics. And I was like, oh, well, that makes all the sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I was also just quickly thinking about Moody Sveti, who is a poet that we interviewed a few months back. And we had written something in our Substack about the season of grief and sort of this idea that you have to like close out 2025 and begin 2026. And like, I don't even believe in, I mean, like, I believe in the Gregorian calendar in terms of like, I live in this world and I write 2026 now, but I don't in terms of like, I don't believe this is the season for ending and beginning new things. But so we were kind of writing about that, like take, like you don't have to end anything, like you can take your grief with you. And he wrote something back to us about creating a lifelong relationship, a lifelong sort of friendship with grief, and that they'll be beside us as companions for the rest of our life. And I think, and it moves and grows and it has different iterations of it and it has different relationships to the trigger of the grief, but that grief is there all the time. It is like, it is a constant, and we may sometimes find comfort in it, and it may sometimes be scary, but it was just such this beautiful way of thinking about walking with it all the time.
Yes, yes. And goes back to the very beginning of the episode that we just created and around using language and the intentionality of the language that we use and doing that reframe, I feel like is so intentional. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of this conversation. You guys are birthing so many amazing things into the world. Can you share with our audience how people can find you?
Okay, on Instagram at All the Grief Pod, and there we sort of share any of the upcoming retreats or gatherings that we're doing. Rebecca also offers virtual sessions, like books that dive deep into grief. And I know she has an Earth Grief virtual group percolating that is wanting to germinate soon. So you can find us there. You can find us on our website at All the Grief Podcast. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. So we hope that you'll connect with us. And we are so lucky to be connected with you too, Autumn. It's such a pleasure.
Yes.
We've heard you through our ears, but it's lovely to be sitting here with both of you, and the way that you're just supporting all the work to reconnect and sort of make this veil less mysterious and more accessible, because we all can do this. There's nothing special. I mean, while there's everything special about all of us, there's nothing special about being able to do this.
Very
What a beautiful conversation. Thank you guys so much for coming on to the Soul Revival podcast. It was a pleasure getting to know you guys, and I'm excited to try the Sense Dream experience because I can tell with every cell in my body there is a lot of truth to that, and I cannot wait. So I'll link that below as well for our listeners. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Follow our podcast. We release a new episode each and every week, and join us on Facebook inside the Soul Revival community. Come be a part of the magic. We'll see you there.